evidence that's coming from the architects of this Safe Schools program and all the other programs at La Trobe University, which is kind of the root of all evil here, who tell them that it's not about bullying, it's about indoctrinating their children, and it's a whole Marxist program to destroy the nuclear family.
Yeah, for those kids taking it seriously, it must be very confusing. I mean, you're a 13, 14-year-old, some issues about adolescence, you're wanting to talk to someone, you know, normally your parents, about it. To be told that your gender is not fixed, that really there's no such thing as male and female, there's no such thing as biological science. In fact, all science we should be very sceptical. These are confusing messages that I would imagine makes the problem worse.
Well, how much more confusing is it when you've got a program, which you just mentioned, Building Respectful Relationships it's called, and there are cards. They're given the cards, they're half the size of this piece of paper here, and they're asked to role play. And the first person to role play is Megan. And we're told that the card tells you it's there written down. You read it, Megan's 17, she lives in the city. There's a 15-year-old girl that's being told. She lives in the city, she works at a local cafe. Megan has had 15 sexual partners and describes herself as bisexual. She rarely practices safe sex because she's often drunk when she has sex. And the 15-year-old is told, you role play Megan. Or the next girl, 15-year-old, you role play Grace. Grace is 16, she's had 4 boyfriends. She's been sexually active since she was 13. Or perhaps you could role play Kelly. And the character card says, Kelly's 14, in year 9. She's very interested in girls, but she's not sure. She thinks she might be a lesbian. She said, I think I'm a lesbian, but I'm not sure because I've also been attracted to a boy. I guess this gives me more options. And then the card for the teacher tells the teacher to get the year 9 girl, quote, into the character. And the teacher's told to make sure the child gets into the character. These are the instructions. The teacher then has the manual. The Victorian Department of Education, here it is, I've typed this out of the manual. Give each of the students a character card, a name tag and a hat with the character name on it. Explain that they'll be acting as a group of young people who've come together to talk about sex and relationships. Give them some time to read their character description and think about their role, and give them a few minutes to get into their character. How does a year 9 girl get into a character of Megan, a 17-year-old who's had 15 sexual encounters with different partners? Come on, you're a dad.
Well, how did this ever become a role of education? I mean, in their young lives, students will spend about 10%, 15% of their time in schools and all the rest in the home environment. And surely this is a responsibility of the family. I know these neo-Marxists don't like the nuclear family, but it's done a pretty good job over the years in trying to school and educate young people about these sensitive issues. And the idea that relative strangers in schools and teachers are relative strangers have taken on this responsibility. Yes. Why? How? Where did this come from, other than this mutant ideological strain that they're trying to push into the school system?
Miranda?
This is first and foremost a family responsibility.
And these year 9 kids, some of them are 13, not 15, 13. Yeah. So you are normalising some very unusual lifestyles
for a child walking into that from an ordinary family and thinks, what's going on here?
And they're not told, oh, well, what about role-playing a girl who's just a sweet little 13, 14, 15-year-old girl who, you know, might like a boy, you know, likes riding a horse. You know, just normal, what is the normal experience for most Australians.
This would unnerve kids, wouldn't it?
Especially at a very vulnerable age. And the problem is that you are really twisting their minds, and most of them will get over it. But you look at the universities now, where you know, before debating, they now have to have a pronoun round where they have to explain, I'm Alan and I'm a boy, and call me he, or I'm Miranda, I'm a boy. It's ridiculous. It is just subverting normal, and it's not like there isn't enough to be teaching kids. It's not like there's enough time in the school day to teach them.
And there's not enough things out there that are confusing children. It's a very difficult world to live in. But you take someone like Cory Bernardi. Now forget, I haven't known Cory Bernardi for years. I think he's an outstanding bloke, a lovely human being. However, forget the politics of it. Cory Bernardi objected to aspects of the program, Safe Schools, anti-bullying program. For his trouble, socialist students stormed his political office. They trashed it. They tore up and scattered papers. They overturned chairs and tables. They wrote abusive graffiti on the floor and walls. people allegedly opposed to bullying.
They are the biggest bullies
They're
of
the
all.
biggest bullies of all.
Yeah.
They shouted and chanted. They forced Cory's wife and staff to shelter in another room. Outside, they destroyed part of the fence. They scrawled graffiti and then moved to his old school, which is now that of his children, and raised a banner there. And that's called a protest.
Wow.
This is insidious stuff, isn't it?
Well, it's a culture war. And quite frankly, it's a war for our civilisation, because they're pushing back against the principles of enlightenment, rationality, reason, education as we've known it. And this attack on knowledge and science is reprehensible. So it is tough stuff. Bernardi has done nothing more than raise legitimate concerns about a public education program. He should be congratulated for that.
Instead, he's called a bigot.
Well, there should be more of him out there pushing back against it, because it is about the future of our culture and our civilisation. And if people don't realise that, they're sleepwalking into an educational disaster.
Good on you. Miranda, lovely to talk to you. But,
Pleasure, Alan. Good on you
it's
both of you for taking up the cudgels on this. It's a really
It's
important
got to
story.
happen, it is indeed. Miranda Devine, always love talking to her, and you can read her tomorrow, each